Many thanks, Cahir. Look, none of us, of course, need to be reminded of the appalling unemployment figures that we inherited from the previous administration, with which we continue to grapple as a government. In that light, Minister, it surely makes sense to award any state work available and where possible to those on the live register. While I accept that the guidelines given by the Department of the Environment to returning officers around the country are to give consideration to unemployed people, I think it's clear from past experiences that these guidelines, weak and all as they are being largely ignored and flouted. Many of our returning officers across the country have not even set up websites, though there is clearly a common website format available to them all. Of those who have, only a few have application forms available for election work. To my knowledge, none of these returning officers have made any attempt whatsoever to advertise the fact that people can apply for these jobs. So, I suppose the question is, if a person is motivated enough to find these secret jobs, what happens next? An applicant fills in a form which asks for contact details and a PPS number. The only other information actively sought is an applicant's current employment status and whether or not they have previously worked in the role. There's a blank section to fill in other details, but the form never specifically looks for work experience, qualifications, IT skills, administration skills and so on. But why would our returning officers not look for this information from prospective employees? I believe that the answer is that this so-called application process is largely a worthwhile exercise. It's a cosmetic exercise, and that jobs will be filled the same way they've always been, drawn from the ranks of retired civil servants and the student children of those who are in the know. I don't think I'm being cynical in saying so. At least the returning officer in Wicklow, for example, is honest enough not to even pay lip service to this farce. I'll quote, if I can, from a message on the Wicklow website dated September 20th, 2012, and I quote, "Employment of polling and count staff. All jobs are offered first to people who have worked successfully with me in the past. Due to a nationwide revision of the number of voters assigned to each polling station, there will be fewer stations in this constituency for future polls. There are fewer jobs available and a surplus of experienced staff. For the moment, therefore, I will not be accepting any new applications." Cahir, I think this is a disgrace and it must be rectified. The generous payment on offer to polling clerks and count centre officials could, for an unemployed family, make the difference to a child's Christmas, whereas for a retired civil servant on a state pension, it means Christmas in Lanzarote. Cahir, I know which I would rather prioritise, and I hope that the Minister will agree with me and bring in transparent and rigorously enforced requirements on the hiring of election staff, starting with the forthcoming referendum. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy, and the Minister to respond. 4 minutes, Minister, if you're quiet.
Thank you very much, Cahir, and I wish to thank Deputy Nash for raising this important issue. As background, could I say to the Deputy that the primary role of the Department of the Environment in electoral matters is to provide the policy and legislative framework for a modern and efficient electoral system. Within that framework, local returning officers are responsible for all matters in connection with the actual conduct of the elections and referenda, including the selection, appointment and training of polling station staff in accordance with the relevant provisions of electoral law. To assist returning officers, the Department issues guidance to them in advance of each election and referendum, and in that guidance is emphasised that the smooth conduct of poll is dependent on maintaining a cadre of sufficiently skilled and experienced people. Having regard to the overall objective of the smooth conduct of the poll, returning officers are advised to employ competent and efficient persons as polling staff. They are also asked to give consideration, wherever possible, to employing suitable persons who are unemployed. I think that the approach taken in the Department's guidance strikes the balance. However, I agree with the Deputy Nash that may not always have been the case where it was implemented in the spirit in which the guidance is given to those particular returning officers. There are competent unemployed individuals who could, with the appropriate training, undertake duties in relation to the conduct of polls. It would be unwise to dispense entirely with the experience of some staff that are needed, particularly in large polling stations for supervision purposes, but there is positions such as poll clerk that could easily be assigned for electoral purposes in each polling station. My department issues a manual for presiding officers at each election and referenda. We supplement this with appropriate training to ensure all staff are familiar with the tasks and responsibilities. But I am taking the opportunity, as Deputy Nash has raised this matter today, to contact returning officers again this week to emphasise the importance at this difficult time for families and for individuals that are unemployed, and remind them of their duty, as I laid out in the guidance, to employ suitable people who are presently unemployed.
Deputy Nash, 2 minutes for supplementary.
Thank you very much, Cahir. I want to thank the Minister for his comprehensive outlining of the situation. I'm pleased that he has taken the opportunity to, at this juncture, to remind returning officers of their responsibilities. We are in a time of national crisis, and we as a government have always attempted to prioritise the needs of those who are unemployed or those who are underemployed. As I said in my earlier contribution, €400+ would mean the world of a difference to those who are experiencing unemployment at the moment. It helps pay the mortgage, it helps pay for groceries, it helps pay the bills. And it's important that we use every opportunity and use every tool at our disposal to ensure that those who are unemployed receive the opportunity to gain a few extra euro to help with those bills in these very difficult circumstances. We all appreciate the work that is carried out by polling clerks and count centre staff. It is critical to the proper functioning of our democracy and of our electoral system. And I want to place on record my thanks to those who assist in my own constituency on a regular basis. But now is a time of national crisis, and we need to use every tool at our disposal to ensure that those who require the support get it. The training involved is quite rudimentary. It is I think those who go through that training gain much from it. And gain access to the local authority, to returning officers, and have a unique, I think, opportunity to engage in the democratic system. So it's very important that we use every tool at our disposal to ensure that returning officers ensure in this upcoming referendum that they, insofar as practicable at this stage, employ as many people from the live register as possible at the referendum on the 10th of November, and indeed going forward for subsequent polls in the coming years.
Minister, do you want to respond to that?
Just briefly, I wish to just agree with Deputy Nash that we're in a time of national crisis. We are at a time when people are competent but are unemployed, unfortunately. I will be seeking a report from returning officers after this referendum to establish if they did make the efforts that are outlined in the guidance from the Department in order to implement the spirit and indeed employ as many people as possible that are unemployed particularly into the post of poll clerk. I can understand that the presiding officer needs to have the competence and indeed greater level of training and supervisory and experience that's necessary to have a poll running smoothly. But the post of poll clerk, I think, doesn't require a lot of training, and also that position is able to be fulfilled and responsibility is fulfilled under the guidance of the presiding officer. And if necessary, if regulations are required in the future in order to ensure that these the guidance document from the Department is fully implemented, I will consider that.